Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us for what is sure to be an insightful and inspiring discussion about artwork with two fantastic, talented artists. My name is Stephen Snyder. I am the Gallery and Communications Coordinator for the West Vancouver Community Arts Council, and we are thrilled to bring you this conversation about the exhibition Vibrant Transitions with two of the three artists. Unfortunately, painter Sue Bayley could not join us this evening, but we do have with us Melissa Burgher and Golya Mirderikvand, and we will get to meet them in just a few seconds. So Vibrant Transitions, which you can see some of the exhibition behind me, is on display at the Silk Purse Art Center from now until June the 23rd. It's a fantastic little gallery right in John Lawson Park in West Vancouver, which is on the unceded and traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples here on the North Shore. That means the Squamish Nation, the Tsleil-Waututh
Bayley could not join us this evening,
but we do have Musqueam Nation,
Melissa Burgher and Golya Mirderikvand.
Incredibly honored and grateful to our host nations for their stewardship of this land since time immemorial, and thrilled to be able to celebrate arts and culture with our host nations. As we said, this exhibit is on until June 23rd, so please come on down if this piques your interest to have a look at it. And if you have any questions or comments for our artists, you can drop those in the chat, and we will get to that near the end of the talk tonight. Let's meet the artists that we have here. They're going to introduce themselves, say a little bit about who they are. Let's start off with, to my left is Melissa. So Melissa, why don't you tell us a bit about who you are?
Hello and good evening. My name is Melissa Burgher. I am a visual artist. I work in acrylic, oil, mixed media, gouache, and I also do textile arts. So that's something that I have learned with another artist as part of a group called the Diversified Brush. And then I also do fiber art. So I've had the privilege of working with several Indigenous organizations over the years and worked with a lot of elders and knowledge keepers, and I've learned a lot about the plants. So that's something that I've been doing for 2 years now. But in this exhibition, it is more about my florals. So I find an interest in plants, particularly flowers, because it can allow for more abstraction. A little bit about me and my history. I have a psychology degree. I have a fine art diploma, and I've done a lot of different things over the years. I've been very transient. I've lived and worked all over Western Canada. I've worked in the mines. I've worked training racehorses. I also run an art school in Port Coquitlam, and I do a lot of community grants. So the latest one is running art classes with professional instruction from different artists and supplies completely paid for. So making art accessible to anybody in the community that is facing barriers or maybe just doesn't want to invest in pricey materials because they don't know if they would like it. So that's what I'm really passionate about as well, is making art accessible and sort of stopping this idea of, gatekeepers of what's good art. And, I think that all people, and Golya and I have talked about this, all people are creative in some way. And it's always funny because people like to be like, oh, I'm not creative. And I like to challenge that. So yeah, that's me. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing, Melissa. That was great to learn a little bit more about you. Golya, could you please tell us a bit about you?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. It's lovely to be here for this artist talk. Thank you, Steve, for organizing this. And I'm very thankful to have had this opportunity to participate in this exhibition at Silk Purse alongside Melissa and Sue. I I grew up on the North Shore, so this is a familiar community to me, and it was nice to be able to exhibit at this gallery. A little bit about me. I've been painting for many years. I absolutely love to paint, so I have a a special connection to paint, whether it be watercolor, acrylics, or oil. I've taken art classes in school. I've taken private classes when I was younger. I started out with watercolor. I did watercolor for many years. I went on to do my master's in art conservation, restoration of works of art. I specialized in restoration of and preservation of paintings. So I know a lot about paintings. I've worked on restoration projects of many different types of paintings, canvas paintings, panel paintings, murals, etc. There's a lot of material science in the field of art conservation, so you get to know the materials really well. So Queen's University is out in Ontario, so I worked out east a little bit, and then decided to return to the West Coast. And upon returning to Vancouver, art conservation jobs are a little hard to find in this city, although I have had contracts here and there. But I had to diversify my skills in order to work in the arts. And so, which was it's been lovely, actually. I've worked at, various art institutions, both in the public and private realm. And so I got a flavor of other roles and involved in the field of arts, curating, exhibiting, exhibition planning, event planning, other sort of community type activities. So several years ago, I developed some health complications, which kind of steered me away from the arts and work a little bit, and I had to kind of switch gears for a little bit there. And so the whole episode kind of inspired me to work in the field of social services, more specifically community development and resource development and things like that. So I do really quite like the job. And even like when I was working in the arts, it was lovely to connect it to community. I think the two go hand in hand quite nicely. So my full-time job right now is in that arena. And about a year ago, I had the urge to get back into the arts again, and with the intention of creating and in a more disciplined way. I mean, I've always been involved in the arts, kind of, the level of involvement kind of varies, but over the past year, I kind of have been dedicating more disciplined time to it. My studio is in the Parker Street building in East Van. And right now my works are quite inspired by nature, and they shift from landscape to abstracted landscape, and that's what I seem to be gravitating towards a lot. It could be that I'm working in the people sector, and it's lovely to take refuge in nature. And yeah, so it's lovely to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Golya. There's some overlaps I'm noticing with both of you that I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about our other artist, Sue Bayley. We'll see a little bit of her work as we go throughout this conversation. You can see some of her work behind me. She is a West Vancouver-based artist, originally from the UK. She paints mostly in acrylics, but also adds a lot of mixed media to her work. She studied art at the Chelsea School of Art and at the London University. She has moved and lived and worked all over the globe. Her artistic career spans not only painting, but ballet, rock music promotion, and film production. So like the two of you, a very diverse background, but always kind of involved in the arts. And last year in 2023, Sue was honored with the Distinguished Artist Awards at the Harmony Arts Festival, which is, for those of you who don't know, is the huge arts festival here in West Vancouver. So that was a a great honor for her to be honored by her community like that. So she has been, painting for over 30, 40 years, all of her life. But recently, her life has changed as she is living with lymphoma cancer and myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is a chronic inflammation of bodily systems. And even though she's living with these uncomfortable conditions, she's still painting. Painting helps her explore her emotions, creates a sense of joy and peace while living with chronic illness and pain. And she has dedicated a number of pieces and profits from her artwork to the BC Cancer Foundation and the BC Brain Wellness Institute. So she's giving back to her community, just like Melissa and Golya. Sue's health challenges have led her to make changes to her art practice as her limited energy and hand tremors make, as she says, dancing around the studio difficult now. But she has learned to paint with her less dominant hand, so teaching herself to be, I can't remember what the word is when you're ambidextrous as a painter, which I don't know how many painters could safely say they are. But she is still full of life and joy, using flamboyant colors and wild gestures and brushstrokes to make positive and impactful art, which is also currently inspired by nature. So that's a little bit about Sue. So thanks for getting to know our artists a little bit. You get to know them a little bit better as we continue. And just a reminder, questions and comments, drop those in the chat. For now, we're going to take a quick tour of the exhibit to give you a little bit of a taste of what to expect when you come to see it here at the Silk Purse. So we have a little pre-recorded tour that we're going to get to right now. So this is what you see if you come in off of our waterfront entrance here at the Silk Purse down on Ambleside. As you can see, it's an intimate place that is just bursting with color right now. Starting over on this wall, we've got Melissa's fantastic artwork. You know, these beautiful florals kind of verging on the abstract a little. I have to say, the title of this exhibit is fantastic. The Arts Council, when we select our artists for exhibitions as a sort of team building process, we ask them to come up with the name for the exhibition. And so that's where artists came up with was Vibrant Transitions. And now we have Golya's stunning work. With these fantastic shapes, layers, and colors. So I'm just curious, how did you all come up with the name for the exhibition?
Well, I think I can speak to this one. yeah, I guess we all just kind of talked about the works that we had in mind, and yeah, the themes of shifting, transitions, and given that all the works were floral, and the colors were lots of color, and yeah, that's how that came about, vibrant transitions. And yeah, but I guess based on the artist statement for each artist and where they were coming from, that seemed like the most befitting title for our exhibit.
Yeah, no, it fits perfectly. Yeah, and currently, yeah, and we're looking at Sue's artwork. And that's the exhibition. Just a little taste. You really have to come in person to see it. There are so many layers of paint and so many interesting marks and brush strokes and etchings and layers of giving and taking that you really have to come and see it in person to really get the full scope of what everyone's done here. So next, our artists have selected a work of art from the exhibit that they're going to talk about. It has maybe a little bit to do with sort of the overall idea behind what we're seeing here today. Let's start with you, Golya. You've got a pretty interesting story here. Pull up the work. Would you like to start with the photo first or the painting?
Let's see. I think you know what? We'll start with the photo and then the painting. Yes.
Awesome.
All right. Lovely. Yeah, so the works that I selected for display here for this exhibit are part of a body of works that I created and I'm still working on since the past year, and it's called The Many Faces of the Beloved. So this series explores my many internal subconscious projections of a single subject matter through a series of paintings. And the subject matter is this photograph that I took last spring. So basically, in a nutshell, the project aimed to reiterate that when we're interacting with our surroundings, we may only be seeing part of the truth simply due to our state of mind and what we may be subconsciously projecting onto the other. So yes, as you can see, the source of inspiration for this series is from nature, and it's this photograph that I took last spring of a camellia bush. I was just neighborhood walking, and I took this photograph, and the idea for this series came to mind. And I always honor, whatever captures my attention. So this picture, for whatever reason, I felt like working off of this photo. So I've painted this photograph over and over again. So I have 10 of these paintings now, and 8 of them are on exhibit for this show. And so I've created different renderings of this photo. And this project became an investigation of me as the observer and how I choose to see what I'm encountering. So often what we see and how we interact with the other mirrors our internal world. And many times we're subconsciously projecting our inner world onto the other. And in this process, we're in a way choosing what we see. And that could be intentional or unintentional. And so in fact, it's not the whole truth, and it's part of the truth. So this project came to be an exploration of the artist or the observer and my energy, mood, state of mind that have led me to depict what I see and what I choose to capture. Because this project came to be an exploration of my internal perceptions, the following were interesting internal observations that I noted as I was creating this series. So, like how my feelings in the present moment can impact how I see the other and interact with the other. In this case, the subject matter is constant every time. It's a photograph that is not changing. So when I was creating all these different paintings, an interesting observation was that, it's me that's changing. And that was interesting. And so in essence, these paintings became, were documenting my inner landscape uh, of the different times throughout the past year. And throughout this project, I became quite familiar with this single photograph that I was working off of. And so throughout the creation of the various renderings, it was as if I was exploring my relationship with the various aspects of this picture. So, when you're spending so much time attentively observing something, and this photograph, I observed it so much throughout the past year for creating these paintings. In a way, it was like getting familiar with the multifaceted aspects of a friend, and that's why I've called this series the Many Faces of the Beloved. So I'll talk a little bit about my artistic process, and the creation process. I use some of the features of the photo and the composition as kind of like initial guides. Whatever grabbed my attention from the photograph is what I zoomed in on. And those features were kind of used initially to explore the blank canvas. But partway through, the artistic playful nature would take over, which was lovely. And with each painting, I found that it provided an opportunity to break previous associations and assist with building new ones. Because the photograph is such a busy image. There's lots to explore in there. So every time I finished one, it was like something else that grabbed my attention that I wanted to go back to studying, I guess. And so in a way, this project became an exercise to see in new different ways, which is a lovely creative, it's a lovely exercise for creativity. And it helped me with pushing the creative boundaries and getting the creative urges flowing. So for each rendering, I actually thoughtfully created a color palette. So and that was quite informed by my my mood and state of mind. So it was a lovely project. It was a lovely project, and I'm still working on it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. And it is very interesting, as those of you who just saw the little tour that we took, how different each piece is from the other, but how you still might find some similarities in terms of maybe shapes or composition a little bit. It's really interesting. I'm curious as to on some of what you've said about your exploration and breaking associations, and these very intentional and thoughtful color palettes. How much of this, of say each work, is intentional and planned versus just intuitive and living in that moment of play?
I would definitely say 90+% of it was intuitive, actually. Yes. I think I started out with setting a color palette, and and zeroing in on a specific part of the photo that really grabbed my attention. Like, for example, for one of the paintings, the lines, the lines in the photograph where the leaves are attached and all of that, that's what grabbed my attention. The foliage, the light and the dark, the shady parts, and then there was the lighter parts that so yeah, with each rendering, it was something else that grabbed my attention, and it was yeah, and I would say for it was quite an intuitive process, yeah, and no underlying sketches, just going in there with the paint.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Is this sort of the first time you've done a project like this?
Yes, it is actually. It is. I mean, I have done abstracted landscapes before, but the project like this where I've explored a subject matter many times over and over, yes, definitely. It was definitely the first time. It was kind of it was a nice commitment, and uh it I I thought about the project quite a bit before starting it, and it's like, well, what am I going to get out of this? Like, what is this? That you think that, because there's always, you think a certain project is going to span out a certain way, or but it never does. But I kind of thought about the overall reason why I'm doing this project, and a few general things really grabbed my attention. The fact of the matter that I would commit to exploring like a subject matter so much really kind of grabbed my attention. I don't know if it's because of where I'm at in life, where I really kind of crave that kind of a project. In essence, it's kind of like a study, and I think a part of me really craved that kind of a project where I'm investigating a single subject matter over and over again in different ways.
Wonderful. Very, very interesting and intriguing. There's so much that one can interpret about each piece, how different they are. And then once sort of the whole sort of idea, then it makes it interesting as the viewer to figure, well, why did I interpret it that way? Why did the artist interpret it that way? It's a great dialogue to have, I'm sure, with you and the work, and then with the audience and the work, and ultimately with you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks so much for that, Golya. And now Melissa has selected a fantastic painting as well. Let's pull that up. All right, Melissa, could you please tell us about this fantastic work?
Yeah, so by the way, Golya, I love your description of your process. It's very fascinating and insightful, and I think that's really helpful for other people to maybe try that process as well. I think that's really cool. Yeah, so this painting, where to start? I think I mentioned that I like florals because they, in their own way, are kind of abstract. They're together, they're apart, they're small, they're big, the colors. And so, yeah, this piece is called An Ode to O'Keeffe and Van Gogh. That sort of came after the fact. But I think I called it that because O'Keeffe would do these really, really large flowers. And this is by no means as big as some of O'Keeffe's works, but they are very large in person. And then also Van Gogh, because of his impasto sort of colorful approach of really laying the paint on thick. And these paintings are really about more of the pleasure in creating, and not really like, I wasn't really looking for an outcome. For me, when it comes to creating, it's sort of like a relationship I have, like a very intimate, you could think like boyfriend, girlfriend, and a painting that I keep because I actually destroy about 99% of my artworks. The ones that I keep aren't necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing, but they're the ones that I enjoyed creating, that there wasn't a lot of fighting, there wasn't a lot of arguing. So for me, it's all emotion based. And this painting was extremely joyful to create. Like I was dancing and listening to my music, and I was using oil sticks. And I know I've told you, Stephen, how messy they are. And I absolutely love oil sticks because you don't have a paintbrush. It's just finger to canvas with an oil stick. So I sort of like that immediacy, and it's very thick, impasto, immediate. And I really like sort of um, taking chances and risks and then seeing something like spontaneous and beautiful. So there's that aspect of the painting, but it was somewhat planned only because I've painted irises so much. So I already had an idea of what they were like. I knew my colors. I was looking at orange and blue as sort of my dominant complementary colors. And then, thinking about design principles, rule of thirds. So those things were already in my mind from all the paintings I had done. And something that I find that's interesting about my florals is they aren't delicate. They actually feel quite solid. And I think that's because there's such a strong outline and because of how thick the paint is. So yeah, I really enjoy that sort of throwing caution to the wind and just throwing everything at my work. This painting maybe took 2 hours to do, but I probably destroyed like 10 paintings before I got to that point. That's my playful process. A lot of the other work that I do grisaille under paintings, or I do just other sort of techniques. But with the flowers, I find that I'm able to just play a bit more and not be so thoughtful about what I'm doing, and just laying the color on. And um I think that's all I really have to say about that. It's painting for the sake of painting.
That's fantastic. Why else paint? You have to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I would love to know what you mean when you say you destroy your paintings when you're not feeling them, when you're done with it. Just please
It's
explain. Yeah.
usually just wiping it away because it's oil. And I know a lot of people are like, well, why don't you sit with it, and come back to it and rework it? And I'm like, well, if I'm not feeling good, and it could, like, I have, for better or worse, destroyed very beautiful paintings that people have wanted to buy. But because I didn't have that, what's the right word? Mutual respectful relationship. It's sort of like I find with some paintings, it's like an abusive relationship. And it's like, oh, I love you, and oh, I hate you. And if there's too much of that, like there's something that's just, and it could just be my mood, which I'm sure it is a lot of the time. But if it doesn't feel good enough in the process, I just wipe it away. I sand it. I have burnt paintings. I've put my foot through panels, and it feels really great and cathartic. But yeah, I think nothing lasts forever. I know paintings can last a long time, but yeah, for me, it's more about how I felt when I was creating. And so if I look at a painting, it doesn't matter how masterful it was, but if I wasn't feeling good, I'll just have that sort of thought when I look at it.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting because it's like you said, there might have been works that other people have loved, but you don't have that love for it, or it hasn't given you that love, so you don't even want to put that out into the world, huh?
Yeah, I do, like money doesn't. I mean, money's great, but I'm like, oh, I destroyed it. I will get photographs done sometimes so I can sell prints, but generally, if I'm not feeling great about it, it just feels so much better to wipe it away. And the artist process is so individually unique. Like right now, I'm making about 2 or 3 paintings a day, and I wipe every single one away because I'm just not feeling it. And I'm probably moving into yet another style of art. That's another thing that I find is really challenging in the art world is the need for consistency. And I understand where that need comes from. But at the same time, I'm neurodivergent. I have a lot of things that I'm interested in. I also have a mood disorder. So for me, it's really hard to do more than like 5 or 6 pieces that are of the same style and the same theme. Like I do portraits, I do animals, I do abstract, like all those things. And any given month could be completely different. So sticking with florals though, I've been doing them on and off for about a year. So that's pretty consistent for me, but I'm probably going to start to move away into something different again. But yeah, I think that is to be celebrated, and I wish I could do more art shows where I had like so many different things going on.
Yeah, just like a retrospective.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And you mentioned, different subjects and sort of styles and even materials that you're creating with. Uh, but is nature kind of always your inspiration?
Yeah, I think nature and also sort of what Golya was talking about was the perception. But definitely for me, I need to be in nature. I don't do well if I spend too much time indoors or if I spend too much time in an office or whatever. So yeah, definitely nature. And for the florals, I actually have a friend that owns a flower shop, and I was always interested in plants and medicinal properties and weaving with them. But she started gifting me like these amazing flowers. And I'm like, wow, they're so beautiful. And until you have that exposure, I think, like, I didn't have that much exposure with flowers. Irises, I think, are really funny because, like, the way that they move, like, they're like people to me. So, like, they're always kind of like, eh. But like, I didn't really have that exposure. And then whatever flowers didn't sell, she would give to me, and I just started finding them more and more interesting. So that's where like that came from, and I was very privileged to be able to receive those gifts from her. And otherwise, I don't know if I would have painted any flowers.
Oh, fascinating. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Melissa. Thank both of you. That was really, really insightful stuff going on. Uh, And I'm just gonna quickly bring up one of Sue's pieces, even though she's not here. She's given me a little statement to read, so we can get a little bit more of a taste for what Sue has done as well. So this is a painting here called Spring Fling. And Sue says, color speaks to our soul in a language that transcends words, evoking a primal response that is deeply ingrained in our very being. A single hue or a symphony of shades has the power to unlock hidden memories, stir up forgotten emotions, and bathe us in an overwhelming sense of joy, comfort, and connection. Her work is about inspiration, hope, and the capacity to move beyond the scars and the pain, to find beauty within the dark. Beauty helps our souls find a moment of respite, a gentle reminder to breathe deeply and let tranquility wash over you. She sets out to decipher and reconcile, the intangible elements of nature that make a moment both fleeting and enduring, with raw, expressive brushstrokes echoing the organic forms and colors of nature, along with complexity of mark making. Sue explores the duality of beauty and loss, along with the fleeting and fragile conditions of life. It's a world we live in that is built upon dramatic abstraction, and her artwork as well is built upon abstraction in a contemporary and expressive approach to the canvas. In her artwork, you can find complex layers of colors, deep splatters, swift brushstrokes, and some drawn shapes that coalesce to create a layered visual narrative. And her artwork, she says, even though they are sort of nature inspired, and a lot of them you can see a flower or a plant in them, they could be hung whichever way feels best to you. So vertically, horizontally, whatever the emotion, the experience that says to you. So it's a little bit about, again, there's a lot of echoes in the three of you in what you're exploring with your artwork. Something I want to get to is this idea of community, which seems to be important, community building to the two of you through the arts. Has that always been something that has been of interest or passion to you?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I used to be pretty selfish, I'll admit it. But I think when I went back to school at 26, and then because I went from working with like animals and machines, like not working with people, to then working in transition houses, people with developmental disabilities. I was an infant development consultant. But yeah, I think when I was around, God, like 5 or 6 years ago, I met a really inspirational artist, Joanne Dennis, in Surrey, and she got me to join the Surrey Art Gallery Association. And I got to sit with, some really strong men and women that were really strong advocates of art and community. And I got to hear what they said. And it really changed my perspective. So yeah, I had a major shift, and that's just exposure and people that think differently. So I've been really passionate about community since then, and helping people. And I think helping people also makes me feel good about myself. But for sure in the arts, it's something that I enjoy doing. I write several grants a year. I run several projects. A lot of the work I do is trying to bring projects to other artists. Like I like holding painting competitions where artists are being paid and they can choose if they can sell their paintings. So a lot more of the honoring artists. And then just trying to make art more accessible to people too. I mean, paintings are expensive, but at least if we can hopefully teach people to or help them to be able to make their own creations, right? So yeah, community building is strong for me now, but definitely when I was younger, I was just in my little bubble and working hard and trying to survive. And yeah, now actually I'm a young parent support worker, so I do parent education with young pregnant moms and expecting fathers and things like that. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit too. Yeah, definitely. I've always liked community building, actually. I when I finished my undergrad degree, my jobs were in the community development sector, actually. And yeah. Yeah, I do hear what Melissa is saying though about the need for, self and community. And I think it's a nice balance to have the two. And I think you need to, with your lifestyle, try to strike a balance with that, because yes, there are times when you need to just have some time to yourself. But I think it's a lovely dance between self and community to kind of bring it all together. And you learn a lot through others and through sharing. I love sharing, whatever community activity it might be that that requires sharing, and that's where you see commonalities in all beings, in all human beings, and it kind of puts you as your self in on the map, that you're not necessarily the only person in the world going through things. And I really like that aspect of community building and gatherings and networking, bringing people together so that people can learn from each other, and also find friends and people that may know more in some areas than you do. And that information sharing is very valuable to me. And I find community gathering to be very healing actually. So some years ago, I got a grant to do a photography workshop, as a self-exploration through photography workshop, and it was a wonderful workshop actually. People really enjoyed it. It was educational for me. You facilitate a group, and you are also learning as a facilitator, and that's what's really lovely about it. Yeah, I've done a lot of facilitated groups, and it's lovely. It's a circle of people, and you're sharing, and it's always a learning opportunity for every single person. So yeah, and I'm currently working in the community development sector too. So that's going to be an ongoing project for me alongside arts.
Art has such a way of being able to bring people together, just to share ideas, to figure out what it is they think they're seeing, what they're interpreting, sharing that with other people, learning about art, learning how to create it. Yeah, arts are a perfect delivery system for building community. Something that you both have also mentioned, something I know from Sue, is that you seem to be lifelong creatives, making artwork from a very young age. Why do you think that is? What is it about creating and making something that you think is so integral to you as people?
Did you want to go first, Melissa?
I was just wondering if you could rephrase the question, because I'm having a hard time.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's okay.
No, that's why do you feel this sort of need to be a creator, to create something specifically through artwork? Why do you think that is?
I'll let Golya go first.
I think it's human nature, I think it's been built in our DNA to create, and I don't know if we were alive yet when Melissa was disclosing anyways, but we were talking about creativity and how you don't necessarily have to be an artist by profession to be a creative individual. I think creativity and exploring and having a creative outlet is integral to us human beings. I think that's generations and centuries. That's just the way it's been. Jewelry, dishes, pots and dishes, and clothing, and gardening, cooking, all of that stuff. It's just so visual arts is a technical aspect of a creative stream that you could have in your life. And you could, what I love about it is I actually love mastering the different techniques and learning, achieving different effects. And I think I mentioned before, I just love playing with paint. So watercolor, how freeing it is. And it's a difficult watercolor. It's extremely difficult because it's very hard to control how different it is than, say, oil, acrylics, all these, and so I think creativity is something that I think it's needed for everybody in order to have that wholesome to bring it all in, I think, you know, and there's a very a healing aspect of the arts, and I can speak to visual arts in particular because you know, I'm involved in it. It's you know, it increases your concentration, you know, eye-hand coordination when you're concentrating on an external subject matter, and you're painting or drawing from it. It's actually a lot of work, you know. If you've ever sat through a 3-hour life drawing class, you know, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of concentration there, and it actually is good for you, you know, and especially, you know, in this day and age where the use of technology is so enmeshed in our day-to-day lives. Technology has created a lot of scatteredness, and you know, it constantly disrupts your attention. So when you're doing something, when you're engaged in a creative project like the visual arts, where you're drawing and painting off of the subject matter, you're really honing in your concentration, and that's very healing for you, actually. You know, it's good for the mind. You know, if it's soothing for people who may have some mental health issues, and you know, it doesn't have to be necessarily visual arts. I think any creative endeavor is extremely healing, and it's part of us as human beings. We need to have it. It's necessary.
Yeah, I can sort of add to that. I've worked a lot with children. I've worked in schools running different artists in classrooms. You know, we've done painting, we've done weaving, and thinking about my own childhood. Almost, I'd say actually all children, particularly like the 5, 6-year-olds, they're all on the same level. I just look at it in life as that we only have so many paths, right? We can't choose all of them. You know, we can't choose sports or music, or like, your time has to go somewhere. So I think that some people do have a slightly higher inclination towards maybe something like painting and drawing. For me, I know it's genetic. I know it ran in my family on my dad's side. Um, but what I've discovered is that the strongest artists aren't the ones that are the most gifted. They're the ones that have to work hard, and they work really hard, and they're diligent, and they study and they practice. That's what I've noticed anyways. I never considered myself particularly gifted at all, and I still don't. But I've worked really hard at it. And I think I've made some great work. I've also made some trash artwork, which comes along with it. But it's interesting because in our education system, and again, I understand why we have to have these systems in place, but you know, critiquing and making things good, you know, to a certain standard is really important in learning something. You know, to learn something, you have to be challenged, you know, you have to fail lots. But with creativity, those rules don't really work, particularly with children. I think that so many kids become hyper focused on, you know, drawing inside the lines, and it doesn't look like this. And it's really hard because I've seen some absolutely like wild, funny, beautiful, scary, like these artworks that children create, and they can be absolutely phenomenal, but because it doesn't look like a bird, a cat, or a chicken, or whatever they're trying to do, you know, they think it's garbage. So for me, when I think about, you know, creativity, I think that we all have it, but it doesn't mean that we're gonna focus our life on it. You know, it's about where you want to put your energy. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Totally. Amazing. Thank you both so much for such an interesting conversation, and really kind of getting to the meat of who you are as artists and sort of your outlook and philosophy on art making. It's been a real awesome talk. And thank you everyone who is watching this live and who is watching this later on when it's just living here on our YouTube channel. Please make sure you come on to the Silk Purse and see vibrant transitions featuring Sue Bayley, Melissa Burgher, and Golya Mirderikvand on until June the 23rd. It's a stunning exhibit full of so many layers of paint and meaning. And thank you, Melissa and Golya, for being here and sharing your fascinating insights. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, Steve, for organizing this.
Yeah, big thank you. And it was so lovely to meet you too. And warm thoughts going out to Sue.
Yes, thoughts.
Definitely. Awesome. Again, thank you all for watching. Check back here in a couple of weeks. We'll have another artist talk for another exhibition. And if you want to know more about what we do here at the Arts Council and what our fantastic artists do, there are links in the description of this video to the Arts Council and to each of the artists, so you can stay up to date with what they're doing. So please check that out and continue to follow them and support the arts. Thank you very much, and take care.
Thank you. Thanks.